Okay, so today's video is how to speak to estate agents, and I'm going to be giving you 7 tips. Now, speaking to agents is extremely important for various reasons, and some of these may actually include 1, buying your residential home, 2, maybe you're looking for your first investment home, 3, maybe you're trying to deal source, or 4, trying to find a BMV deal, i.e. below market value. Now, these are just a few examples, but I'm sure there's many that you can probably think of. But if you're anything like I used to be, the whole experience of speaking to an estate agent, well, it was very, very overwhelming, at least for myself when I first started out. The fear of maybe saying something stupid or then finding out that you're just a newbie in the game can almost stop you instantly in your tracks. And I don't want that from you, because it almost stopped me too, but fortunately I persevered. And the purpose of today's video is to leave you feeling not just motivated, but well equipped with the right questions and know-how to at least get started speaking to estate agents. Okay, so what I want to do is begin with the most obvious things, and sometimes it's even the obvious things that many of us just simply forget. Number 1, yes, estate agents are just regular people. Never place people on a pedestal due to their job status, wealth, or even their follower count. See them as just general human beings who in some way will likely be very similar to yourself or somebody that you know. Number 2, they want to sell their properties, and they likely want the least resistance in doing so. In other words, the easier you can make it for them, the easier it'll be for you. The first conversation that you ever have with an estate agent or a letting agent will never be your best one. If you really are struggling and maybe you're as anxious or shy or as nervous as I was when I first started, one of the biggest tips I can tell you is to go out of town and speak to an estate agent in an area where you're pretty confident that you're not going to be operating in. That way you can at least learn from your experience and from anything that you may have messed up on, and hopefully realize that, well, 1, they're just normal people, and 2, you now have the ability to move on and become better. So for the purposes of this video, let's approach agents with the goal of maybe finding ourselves a deal, and let's keep it simple and pretend that we, i.e. yourselves, just want to discount your properties by say 20%. For example, what I mean by this is the same house in the same similar condition on that road may be selling for £100,000. We want to find it for £80,000. So let's get started. Now, the first thing I recommend is that you be yourself, which may have you wanting to go out dressed literally how I am. And to be honest, it's actually how I'd probably go out to an estate agent now, but that's obviously with a lot more confidence. But it wasn't how I always started to go out. So what you want to do is find an in-between. You want to find where you feel somewhat comfortable, but you're not completely out of your skin. For example, I hate wearing suits and ties and shirts. So one of the things I thought is, what's the in-between between looking how I am now and maybe something very, very formal? And for me, it was simply polo, jeans, and a jacket. And that was me being at my smartest, but also where I felt comfortable, because you're already going to be feeling anxious and overwhelmed. So really try and find that medium in terms of, okay, I feel like I look a little bit smarter than normal, but actually, hopefully they can take me a little bit serious. Now, what I will say is I wasn't trying to pretend I was something I wasn't. But let's be honest, first impressions are key. And I knew that in the back of my head. At this stage, I looked 16 when I was first going out. And the last thing I wanted to be judged on by somebody else on the other side was that, 1, he looks too young, and 2, he probably can't afford it. Number 2, know your numbers. This is so important, and also know what you can bring to the table. For example, if you go in with maybe an agreement in principle or a mortgage in principle from a current lender, or a bank statement showing your screenshots of your savings that you have ready to invest, that's going to be really, really useful, because that shows the estate agent you actually have money and you're not just going in there trying to get a deal. You can actually potentially move forward either via a mortgage or just through your savings themselves if you were going to buy it cash. So this is really, really important. Number 3, talk about normal stuff. It won't hurt to talk about the football, the news, or something else that you can think of in that moment. I've been to estate agents, and sometimes I'll look around and I'll have a look on their desk. Maybe they got a photo of their kids. Speak about that. Try and be normal. Remember, they're normal people. Have a conversation, because one of the things I recognize is that people love to talk about things they're interested in. It's really not rocket science. And also, this will make you more memorable as well. You won't just be that newbie investor who's come straight off a course and going in with a script. You want to become yourself. You want to be relatable, because one of the things I recognize and one of the things I strongly recommend you do in this game is be authentically yourself. This is a people game. The more people you can get on with, the longer your creating property will be. Yes, you can have some small wins by trying to pull the wool over people's eyes and saying all the right things, but somewhere down the line, that mask is going to slip. So it's much easier to get started by just being yourself. Number 4, be accurate in your deal criteria. Now, the more accurate you can be, the easier it'll be for them to remember you if specific deals or criteria should land on their desk. But don't just leave it there. Don't just think I've said it once. You have to chase them. You have to pop into agents every week, every 2 weeks to remind them, 1, who you are, and 2, that you're still looking for those deals. Remember, it's very, very rare they're going to remember you off one occasion. And 5, be memorable. Now, this is easier said than done, but what's unique about you that can be remembered? What can you do over and over when going to see them and writing your emails that they'll remember? Because remember, they're going to be bombarded by a lot of people looking for deals. And for myself, I just became that podcast guy. When I got speaking about life and stuff, I used to say, right, I better leave now and leave you guys to it because I've got a podcast to edit. And that would instantly strike up a little conversation. So when I was emailing, it would always be, hey guys, it's Aaron, the podcast guy. Hope you're doing well. Boom, I jump straight into that email. Number 6, be honest about what you can do. And although you may feel like you need to fake it till you make it, I strongly urge you just to be honest. Honesty is always the best policy. And I know it's really daunting if we just jump on the deal sources, i.e. the newbies looking to get into property, because you feel like you've got no experience. And then you have the chicken and the egg scenario of, do I find an investor first and then look for a deal, or do I find the deal and then hope the investors come flooding in? It's a tough situation, and what I would recommend there is that you're just straight up and you're upfront with that estate agent. The more transparency that you can deliver and tell them this is what you're trying to do, this is what you're willing to work with, and say that you're willing to work with them as well. Because one of the things that I recommend is that you work with estate agents. They're not your competition. I know a lot of people trying to get off market deals, and that's absolutely fantastic, but I recommend, and I know from experience, that most of your deals are going to come from agents. And I will just quickly say at this point, when I used to start, I used to know in the back of my mind that I was never going to reach that list of preferred buyers, because at the end of the day, estate agents have their select list. So most of the time when you see stuff going on Zoopla, Rightmove, and on the market, it's already seen a few eyes. The big investors who literally buy everything have already looked over it and thought, maybe not for me. But that still doesn't mean it's not a good deal. So what you have to do is somehow move your way up that list. And this comes through going through transactions. Your first deal may never be your best one. But if you can just commit and you can just be honest, for example, if you can't fulfill on a deal, don't leave an agent waiting. Don't ignore their emails or those awkward conversations. Ring them, explain, be transparent and say, listen, I think this has fallen out of bed because of X, Y, and Z. And that's massively not only going to build your credibility, but it may also open up some other avenues further down the line. And finally, number 7. Now remember, estate agents are taught in a particular way. So if you've ever been on a property course, or you've been on a webinar, or even a video like this on YouTube, there's always creative ways of learning stuff. So when we first started the rent to rent side, some estate agents weren't clued up on this. So what you want to be doing is not trying to pull the wool over their eyes. Sometimes it's worth building a rapport with them, getting to know them, and then actually speaking to them about what you're actually after and what you're trying to do. Now, I appreciate this video could literally be 60 minutes long, as I've got so many other points that I had written down, but I'm just conscious of time. So what I would suggest is, if you haven't done any of the above that I've mentioned, is start doing them now. Whereas if you've done all of that and you're still struggling, or you have a particular question, then by all means drop it down in the comments below. And what I'll do is I'll give you a detailed answer to your question, which I hope will help you on your journey. And with that, it's now my favorite time of the video to roll those bloopers and go get something to eat. Thanks for watching. Okay, so Now speaking to agents is extremely. However, if you're anything, get started. To at least get started. For the purposes of this particular video, let's approach. So what I will suggest is that if any of the above was something that you